Why have people been losing it so much about Chappelle's most recent bit? It's not even offensive compared to umpteen other bits. Can I be really straight with you, Scourge God, on this one, right? And I know that as I'm going to talk about this, I'm wading into the weeds. I had a conversation even yesterday about this, and I could tell that there were people in the chat that were getting uncomfortable with my position on it. I think the thing that people are most offended about exactly, here we go, about Dave Chappelle's newest special is that he's really attempting to articulate something that has yet to be articulated, and it's up to debate whether or not he even managed to successfully articulate it or critique the situation. And I think what's making people the most uncomfortable about it is that he clearly went into this conversation not to tell jokes about it. I think that's what makes people the most uncomfortable, is that he really has gone into this conversation with the genuine interest of trying to find a way to amalgamate these two things. Yeah, he flat out called himself a TERF. Yep, you're absolutely right on this. And here's my position on Chappelle. I'm just going to state it, and then we can all move from there, okay? I admire his struggle, right? Like, he doesn't need to do this. He doesn't need to do this. He doesn't need to wade into these weeds. He doesn't need to. He never needed to, right? He could have just walked away from it completely. Like, completely. He could have literally just done another special, picked a bunch of other subjects, and walked away from the subject completely. He did not need to talk about this subject at all. But I think there's something in here that he is struggling with himself, right? He is struggling with his own perception. He is struggling with his own opinions and his own position. And I also think that he sees that people are saying you can't talk about this. And if you say you can't talk about this to a man like Dave Chappelle, he's going to talk about it, right? Like the very fact that they're saying I can't talk about this is inspiration for him to talk about it. And what I believe that we are witnessing is a man who is struggling with a subject, and why I admire that so much is that our society has not given much room to people to actually openly struggle with this concept without heavy demonization, right? And because of my background, because of my own background, I used to be a fundamentalist Christian. I used to argue that homosexuals were evil, that being gay was an affront to God. I lost friends over it, certainly. I look back on that time as and the friends I lost and the people I knew. I don't want to use the word regret, but certainly there are good people who are not in my life because of it, and my own growth away from that, and that struggle that I went through in order to come to a place where I finally said my upbringing was wrong, my family was wrong, my church was wrong, my schooling was wrong, to realize that, like, oh, it's okay to be gay, like all of this kind of stuff. And in fact, the struggle with that is a big, like, that wedge was a big reason I eventually abandoned fundamentalist evangelicalism. Because if it's wrong about that, what else is it wrong about? Turns out a lot of stuff it's wrong about. And so I see someone like Dave Chappelle really taking this head on when he doesn't have to, because he feels that he's attempting to articulate something that he sees as not being articulated in the society. And he's attempting to, and he says it several times, that he's attempting to find a way to unify. Like, he wants us all to laugh together, right? He wants us all to laugh together. And of course, like I actually do view, like, Chappelle makes fun of black people. He makes fun of, pick a race, pick a sexual orientation. He makes fun of it, and so now here's this one group, trans people, who he is including in that, right? And I think fundamentally the question that Chappelle is confronting is why are these people supposed to be excluded instead of included? Like, and that's the difficulty, I think, that people have with Chappelle, is that he views himself as being inclusionary by making fun of trans people, because he makes fun of all of these groups. He views himself as normalizing that group and bringing them into the wider conversation, right? And I think also there's the other element that trans people are used to, when someone is making fun of them, it is an attack, and they're used to that. It's completely, yes, exactly. Yeah, you're touching on it here, Amanda. That's exactly right. Have the highest stats for hate crimes. He forgot about Marsha. Yeah, yep. And this is how the trans community is interpreting this. That because they're so used to any kind of mockery or derision or even commenting on their existence at all, without it being like a full upswell of total support, right? That the trans community is so used to mockery being used as a tool to oppress them and go after them, that even jokes meant not to facilitate that in their mind, and perhaps actually, like, I'm not the expert of any of this, have that result, right? And it was pointed out by Hassan. Hassan said that, like, yeah, immediately figures like Ben Shapiro, figures like David Crowder have grabbed hold of what Chappelle are saying and are using this in their own work as ammunition against the trans community. And it won't be much longer until the real transphobes and, like, the real people are going to come out of the woodwork and use what Dave Chappelle is saying as ammunition against the trans community. And that path, like that path of Dave Chappelle said this either in jest or as a way to try to make a bridge or as a way to articulate his own internal thoughts, is being taken and used as actual ammunition to continue the oppression of a highly oppressed group. Chappelle doesn't see that. He doesn't see that, and he doesn't want to admit that is kind of that is what is happening. I was about to say kind of what happening, but it is explicitly what is happening. And so it's an unfortunate and frustrating situation, because I do believe that Dave Chappelle is struggling with an issue he doesn't understand and is being told that he's not allowed to, which only makes him want to do it more. And he doesn't necessarily understand the fallout of that is literally like a far-right bigot killing a trans person while saying the things that that Chappelle has said. He doesn't see that path, right? And nor do I ever think he would. And of course, I think he would decry that. He would absolutely decry that. That if some far-right Nazi said the words that Dave Chappelle said and used them as a way to destroy a trans person, I think Chappelle would feel that would be a great tragedy, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, right? And I don't like to wade too far into the weeds on the opinions of the comedy or anything like that, because it's such a complex conversation. It is a very complex conversation. Like there's a lot of complexity because like the issue of accepting the existence of trans people in the first place really raises a lot of like when it was easy for straight people to accept, or easier, I should say, I shouldn't say easy, but easier for straight people to accept the existence of lesbians and gay people, because that doesn't actually raise the question of what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? That you can sort of land on the place of saying like, oh, okay, like you're a guy, like you're a man, but you just like having sex with other men. Oh, okay, right? That doesn't confront the issue of what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? Right? And Chappelle's answer when he says I'm Team Turf, right? What he is saying is, well, we are all born by a woman, and so he's kind of making the statement that, well, the ability to give birth to children makes you a woman. And it's like, is that really the thing that makes you a woman? Like, is that really the thing that makes you a woman? And it sets me to thinking and pondering, is this what makes me a man? Is it strictly my genitalia that makes me a man? Is what is a man? What is it to be a man? Right? And these are enormous questions. These are enormous questions that are not going to be answered by a comedian, right? And but in the end, I do have to, like, how do we have this conversation? How do we have these conversations in our society, right? How is it that, like, how can we openly talk about our own experiences with encountering trans people? I don't think falling into silence rather. I don't think falling into silence is good. And how do we ask silly questions, and how do we get into this? And my hope with someone like Dave Chappelle's work is, and I'm going to be straight up. I'm going to be really, really honest right now and really make myself vulnerable when I say this. I have found Dave Chappelle's work, with the exclusion of this last, with the exclusion of this last one, The Closer, which I think was a whole different thing. I think that was more his own dealing with it. But Dave Chappelle's work and his questioning and asking and probing the trans experience has really actually helped me with my own journey. That seeing someone else struggle with the question and seeing somebody else struggle with that has actually helped me with my own journey in that, and with the trans people who are in my own life, and how I approach them and how I talk to them. And ultimately I do think that, like, we shouldn't be using Dave Chappelle as an authority. Certainly, like, trans people should be the authority of the trans experience, like, without a doubt. This is why I'm so heavily critical of Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan platforms transphobes pretty regularly, like people who are against the trans community pretty regularly, and he doesn't platform trans people or trans activists, right? That's the critique I give to Joe Rogan, and why I'm happy to say that Joe Rogan is an outright transphobe, right? That's exactly something a transphobe would do. And ultimately, you have to listen to trans people, and you have to believe what they're saying is the truth, and believe that they're experiencing the human experience, which is something that Dave Chappelle himself articulates. And I don't know that he actually understands that, like, what it is to be a TERF. I don't think he quite gets it, you know? I gotta be straight. Like, I don't think he quite gets what that is. Like, full on. Like, I straight up think that, like, he doesn't understand what that is. I'm just gonna put that out there completely. Like, to me, it is falling onto that, like as he said, like, to me, he said yeah, if you're gender is a fact because we're all born by women, and so women, a woman is, and that is, a woman is defined by her ability to give birth to children, which it's really weird because that's a very strong statement to make about both women and trans people, of which he is part of neither, right? And but in the end, and I think I land on this, and I've been over time on this just specifically to clear this, because I'm also struggling with my own opinion and position on this. I think the two things I walk away with are: trans people are the authority on what it is to be trans, and we need to listen to trans people, believe trans people, and respect trans people. And it doesn't matter if you understand the trans experience. All that matters is that the trans experience is real, and it's part of the human condition, and it reveals that being a human and human sexuality and gender are far more complicated than we thought. That the universe is capable of producing this type of person, and we all are coming to terms with it, and what that means and how do we do that, right? And what's most important is that we listen to trans people, we don't demonize them, and we take advantage of this crack in our society, this little crack in our society where we've stopped beating the shit out of trans people, and we keep widening that crack. And the way to do that is to talk to trans people, platform trans people, listen to trans people, and believe trans people. Outright, without a doubt. Simultaneously, second statement, I think Dave Chappelle is trying to do exactly that he is struggling with this concept himself, that he is struggling with this idea, that he is working within his artistic medium in order to do that, that he is, but ultimately he is not the authority. And I think that is the thing that I think really is why people are so kind of up in arms, is because people are attributing to him that which he is not, which is an authority. In no way is he an authority on these issues. He is, at best, a straight black man struggling with what it is, with the very concept of what it is to be a trans person in the first place. And he's doing it in an extremely public medium and in an extremely public way, which makes it far more difficult and far more absurd. I think, would I call Dave Chappelle a transphobe? That's a tough one. Because of the nature of the medium that he works in, and because of the nature of his work, right? Would I call him a racist? Right? He says lots of racist shit. And again, I just, because of like the nature of what it is to be trans, Dave Chappelle's obvious struggle with that nature, and my own experience of struggling with the nature of human sexuality as well, I have to come out the other side and think, like, we have to be wary about the negative outcomes, the Ben Shapiros and the Steven Crowders, while simultaneously allowing room for these kinds of conversations to occur. And if I were to fault Chappelle with anything, it would be that he seems unaware or willing to accept that there are bad actors who want to hurt trans people who he has just given a lot of ammunition to. And that's really the truth. Like, so you can see how there's lots of things in play, and there's lots of difficulties within the conversation. And at the end, like, Chappelle's intention almost doesn't matter, right? Because once it's out in the world, it becomes its own beast. And my concern with Chappelle's work is, even if he did everything as as a way to try to make peace and as a way to find amalgamation, I am very concerned that people will take his work and use it as ammunition. Okay, guys, you can hear the pug. I gotta go rescue him. I'm way over time. So I gotta go. Just remember, each and every one of you is a divine being, standing in divine energy. Good luck. We're gonna need it.